begin. I am Angela Arnante. I will be your moderator for today's webinar. I'm a program officer of the Foundation for Economic Freedom for the Technology for Property Rights project. I would like to welcome you to this third webinar of the Do's and Don'ts webinar series. Just a few reminders. Uh, we, the host and moderator, will always turn your audio to mute. Also, if you want to view your presentation, just the presentation, just click on your preferred viewing size through the viewing options button found at the middle top of your screen when the presentation begins. For the Q&A, please use the Q&A feature of this Zoom. And also, we would like to remind everyone that we're live on Facebook. And for any issues encountered, please message the host using the chat feature in this Zoom chat. Okay. Before we formally begin, before we go through the presentations, I would like to ask everyone to please turn on. We will promote you to panelists so that we could have a class picture. So may we request everyone to turn on their webcam when you are promoted to panelists, and we'll just have a quick class picture. Thank you. Okay, let's start. So we would like to remind, so another few set of reminders. We would like to request everyone to please fill up the feedback form or the poll after the webinar, and we would like also to tell everyone that we're issuing e-certificates after this session. Okay, just to give a brief recap of what we've been doing for the past 2 weeks. The first webinar we talked about, the title of the first webinar was Getting Somewhere Now Without Being There, where we discussed the different types of drones and their various applications on mapping and surveying. And for the second webinar, last June 25, the title of that webinar was Knowing is Half the Battle, where we showed the various researches conducted by the UP Training Center for Geodesy and Applied Photogrammetry, the Foundation for Economic Freedom, and the Land Management Bureau of DENR. The researches focus on the applicability of drones for surveying, and there's another study that was shown, which shows the comparison of consumer drones in terms of their applicability to be used for survey purposes. For today's webinar, it's also interesting. It's very interesting because after knowing those, it's more of the first two classes were more in theory. Now, if you want to go into drone surveying or just use drones in general, we have to fly by the rules. So that's the webinar's title today. And for today's webinar also, we have invited guests from the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines and the DENR Land Management Bureau to discuss the several policies on drones, which I think all of us will have to face at some point if you want to venture into drones and use it for survey mapping. Now, without further ado, I would like to call our Director for Projects and Administration, Engineer Rielin De Alca, to introduce our speakers.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So our first speaker is Attorney Frank Edward G. Marty, the officer in charge of the Regulatory Standards Department of the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, or CAAP. He has been with CAAP for 5 years, and before that, he worked for various offices of the government, namely Office of the Presidential Advisor for Food Security and Agricultural Modernization, Office of the Ombudsman, Public Attorney's Office, and the National Livelihood Support Fund. He graduated with a degree in Social Science at the University of the Philippines and completed his Bachelor of Laws degree at the Institute of Law, or Eastern University. He will be presenting the rules and regulations related to drones, or what they refer to as the Remotely Piloted Aircraft System, or RPAS, as issued by CAAP. Our second speaker is Engineer Jolene Templonuevo, a geodetic engineer at the DENR Land Management Bureau under the Geodetic Surveys Division. She is primarily focused on drafting and reviewing policies and guidelines related to land surveys. She is currently a candidate of Master of Science in Geomatics Engineering, specializing in geoinformatics. She is also knowledgeable in remote sensing and photogrammetry. Jewel advocates animal welfare and is passionate about traveling and studying. Her presentation will focus on the policies issued by the Land Management Bureau on the use of drones for land surveys. So let us now all listen and learn together from our resource speakers, starting off with Attorney Frank Edward Marty.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I am Attorney Frank Edward Marty from the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines. First of all, I would like to thank the Foundation for Economic Freedom, together with its partners, the University of the Philippines Training Center of Applied Geodesy and Photogrammetry, for inviting the authority to speak before you today about the remotely piloted aircraft system. So this topic has been so timely, as especially these days, drones are being widely used in various aspects of everyday's activity. So I will be sharing to you right now the presentation for today's lecture. So to begin with, the aviation service before is basically more of the, wait, it's basically more on the transport of passenger, transport of cargo, and agricultural operations. Those are the basic operations of aviation services before. But as the industry grows, and just like any other industry, the industry has to involve various operations now, and that includes aerial inspection to remote areas, oil and energy exploration, and aerial surveying and mapping. So I am aware that in this particular forum, we have genetic engineers here who are presently using drones for aerial surveying and mapping. At the same time, those who are who wants to venture into aerial surveying and mapping using drones. So by definition, the International Civil Aviation Organization, or the ICAO, the international governing body of aviation organizations in the world, defines RPAS as a remotely piloted aircraft, its associated remote pilot stations, the required command and control links, and the other components as specified in the type design. So basically, in this definition of the ICAO, it merely enumerates or identifies the components of what an RPAS is all about. So RPAS has been commonly used for photography and videography, but apart from these functions, it has been also used these days for surveying and mapping. And also, it is being used now for surveillance purposes. In surveillance aspect, this has been drones has been, or UAVs and RPAS has been used by the military and other government operations. As a basic principle in drones operation, drones need to be treated as a new type of aircraft with appropriate rules based on risk of each operation. So for the Civil Aviation Authority, for the authorities in the world, worldwide, drones has been treated similar to that of an aircraft, just like any a Boeing 747 and Airbus 320, because drones right now are occupying similar space in our airspace right now. So there are risks involved in the operations of drones. So it might possibly cause damage to lives and properties. That is why authorities set certain rules on how to operate the RPAS, or the commonly termed as drones. For the Philippines, we have the Philippine Civil Aviation Regulations, which is the rules governing all the aviation safety-related matters of civil aviation. So the RPAS, the UAB, is also included in the Philippine Civil Aviation, specifically in Part 2 of the regulation, which includes the personal licensing, Part 4, the aircraft registration or the drone registration, and Part 11, the aerial works or the coverage of the operation. Complementary to the Philippine Civil Aviation Regulations, or the PICAR, we also have the Republic Act 9497, or the Charter of the Authority, which also provides the penalties and sanctions for violation to the Philippine Civil Aviation Regulations. So RPAS, we categorize our RPAS as commercial or non-commercial RPAS. These are the two basic classification in our regulations, the commercial RPAS and the non-commercial RPAS. We will discuss in detail the components of commercial RPAS and the components of the non-commercial RPAS. But it is important to take note of the definition of an air commerce, as this has something to do with the definition or component of what a commercial operation or a commercial RPAS is. So air commerce, by definition, it refers to a scheduled or non-scheduled air transport services for pay or hire, the navigation of aircraft in furtherance of a business. Remember the phrase in furtherance of the business, and the navigation of an aircraft from one place to another for operations in the conduct of business, or an aircraft operation involving the transport of passengers, cargo, or mail for remuneration or for hire. Basically, the basic element in this definition is that any operations involving or that has remuneration or services for pay or hire, then it is considered a commercial operation. Aerial works refers to aerial operations in which an aircraft is used for specialized services such as agriculture, construction, photography, surveying, observations, patrol, search, rescue, and aerial advertisements, etc. So in a commercial operation, the authority requires for one to have a certificate of registration, an RPA also, a commercial operation also has to possess an RPA Controller Certificate and an RPAS Operator Certificate. So these are three requirements that has to be secured for anyone who will be engaging in commercial operations of RPAS. And in the case of land surveying, then we consider that as commercial operations since it involves remuneration or services for hire. So if one would venture into an aerial surveying, then an RPA Certificate of Registration, RPA Controller Certificate, and RPAS Operator Certificate has to be secured from the authority. So all RPAS used for commercial operations are required to be registered with the authority regardless of weight. That is the general rule for all RPAs. So if it is a commercial operation, then it has to be registered, regardless whether the drone is less than 2 kilos or the drone is a big drone, or regardless of the type of operations of the drone. For as long as it is a commercial, it will be for a commercial operation, then it has to be registered. For RPAs, for RPAS with gross weight of 150 kilograms and above are required to obtain a Special Certificate of Airworthiness, SCA, or an experimental certificate. So as you might be aware that a drone right now has different specifications that also involves a different type of category. The size and the weight of the drones are also classified. But aside from the basic three requirements earlier mentioned, if the drone is 150 kilograms and above, then a Special Certificate of Airworthiness has to be secured. This is because this type of a drone is has to be examined by our technical inspectors, because these are not the usual drones anymore. These are specialized drones, so we have to ensure safety. These has to be certified by our airworthiness department. So An RPA Controller Certificate applies to all persons conducting remotely piloted aircraft system for commercial operations. Again, this is a controller certificate. So this is the one who, this certificate has to be secured by the person who will be controlling the drone.
Thank you for that.
Hello. In short, the pilot, the drone pilot. An RPA Operator Certificate, on the other hand, is required to all companies, enterprises, organizations, or person who are engaged in commercial operation or receiving remuneration from the operation of a drone. So this operator certificate, even if that person or that company will not be the one specifically who will be using the drone for or who will be piloting the drone, it has to secure an operator certificate. So these certificates, the operator certificate, the controller certificate, and the certificate of registration of the drones has its own validity and can be secured from these particular offices of the authority. The RPA Controller Certificate, it is valid for 5 years, and one has to secure this from the Licensing Certification Department of the authority. For RPA Certificate of Registration, this is the registration of the aircraft, the drone itself. It is valid for 1 year only, and it has to be secured from the Airworthiness Department. The reason why it is valid only for 1 year is that the authority wanted to ensure that all those drones being used are airworthy. So to ensure that to ensure the airworthiness, we have to regularly monitor the status or condition of the aircraft or the drone. The operator certificate, on the other hand, is valid for 3 years, and it can be obtained from the Flight Operations Department. For the non-commercial operations, as a rule, we do not require an RPA registration. So you do not have to secure operator's certificate. You do not have to secure a controller certificate, or you do not even have to register your drone. But that is the general rule for non-commercial use of or operation of an RPA. However, if your drone or if the aircraft being used for non-commercial use is large enough that it weighs 7 kilos and above, then it shall be registered with the authority. And the operations of that particular drone will be in an area that is a prohibited airspace or a controlled airspace. Then one has to secure a clearance from the authority for the use of that specific drone for non-commercial operation. Again, I would like to emphasize that these are for non-commercial. These are for hobbyists, those who are using the drone for recreational purposes only. But we at the authority are encouraging encouraging drones owner, even if it is for non-commercial purposes, it would be nice that you also would register such drone to our authority. Although it is not mandatory to register your aircraft, but for monitoring purposes, we encourage drones owner to also register your aircraft with our authority, with the authority. So for non-commercial operations, say for example, in a particular case, a surveyor would just like to conduct a survey in his own parcel of land, and it is for his own consumption and not for a client, then that kind of activity is that kind of activity does not necessarily require certification from the authority. So an RPA controller doing non-commercial operation may operate only within the visual line of sight. So these are the operational limits for those who are engaging in RPA non-commercial operations. So it should be someone who is operating the drone has to ensure that he can see the drone or the aircraft that is being operated. Second is that all RPA controllers doing non-commercial operators are prohibited to operate an RPA at night unless authorized by the authority. So we do not allow RPA operations, RPAS operations during nighttime. And if you intend to operate during nighttime, a special clearance or a special authority has to be secured for that purpose. The limitations of the drone in general, whether for commercial purposes or non-commercial purposes, an RPA or a drone shall not be used in a populous area with at a height from which, if its component fails, it would be able to clear the area. So we set the limit that the operation of the drones has to be in an area that is cleared and not in a populous area. And if it is in a populous area, you have to secure a special operations permit from the authority for that purpose. Second is that a person operating a powered RPA must ensure that while an RPA is in flight or is in a landing or takeoff, it stays at least 30 meters away from anyone or not directly associated with the person with the operation of the RPA. So there is a certain distance that is being maintained, and that is 30 meters. So an RPA flying for competition should be flown within 30 meters of a person who is judging for an RPA competition. We just always remember that the standard measures here, the standard requirement here is 30 meters, just like the first restriction that I mentioned. So operations, restricted areas, it should be 10 kilometers away from the aerodrome reference point. So it should be 10 kilometers away from the airport. While you can operate within 10 kilometers within, from an airport, but it should be cleared from the authority. There is a special clearance for that. The reason why we restrict the operations of drone within 10 kilometers is that it might put at risk or endanger the aircraft landing or taking off from that specific airport. Also, the operations of a drone should not be more than 400 feet above ground level. So be it non-commercial or commercial, the operations shall be within 400 feet. And say, for example, a particular drone, you intend to fly above 400 feet, then a special clearance has to be secured for that. The reason is that this height level, there are already aircraft operating in the same height, which might also put at risk the similar aircraft. So as much as possible, for safety purposes, we have to ensure that it will not affect the operations of an airplane, commercial air transport. So we also restrict it in the populous areas, as previously mentioned, and we do not restricted areas also includes places like within 10 in Malacanang Palace, military bases, PNP. So in those areas, we do not allow the operations of the drone. So while recently we observe or we receive a lot of complaints that there are a lot of drones who are violating the rules and operating in a risky manner, and sometimes it put at risk the lives and property of other persons. That is why we are now intensifying our enforcement when it comes to our drone regulations, and we have a specific provision in 9497 section 82 which provides that any violations of the any violation of the provisions of this act or any order, including the rules and regulations of the authority, that is the PICAR, shall be punished or fined ranging from 20,000 pesos to 100,000 pesos. So presently, we are conducting a lot of investigation when it comes to drone violations, UAV violations, and the authority is serious about this, as you know, a lot of civilians are put at risk with these kinds of violations. So remember section 82, the any violations of the drone regulations has a corresponding penalty. So for our current efforts, we are intensifying our dissemination of information and conduct various forums such as this. We are happy that we were tapped by the Foundation for Economic Freedom to also share with you this. So this is a very nice venue for us to share or to inform the public of the regulations that we have. So a lot of our personnel as well are participating in various international symposium and conventions to keep us updated with the current changes of international regulatory framework and policies. As we all know that the drone technology is fastly evolving, and without us knowing, there are very sophisticated drones the following year, and without us knowing that the drone technology has already improved a lot from what it has been from today. So we are also reviewing and deliberating policy changes and increasing possible penalties for drone violators. And we are also collaborating with other government agencies for the strict implementations of the regulation on RPAS. We tap the DTI as well as the Philippine National Police to help us enforce the regulations on the drones. So for the authorities, the challenge is really more on creating a new industry with a larger economic potential, because RPAS offer a vast range of capabilities and sophistications. Their associated technologies, designs, and operating concepts are evolving rapidly, and it is within this context that the authorities are being challenged with the safe and efficient integration of RPAS into our environment, shared by a highly regulated and a well-established manned aircraft industry. So integrating RPAS into the well-established air transport system is a really challenge to the authority, because this RPAS has yet to be tested in many aspects, especially in the regulation side. So, but for RPAS users, the challenge really is more for you to be responsible to use the technology advancement for optimum professional development. So, in short, let us just be a responsible drone owners. We strictly conform with the regulations of the authorities, and the basic act of conforming to this is by having your drones registered, secure the necessary permits every time you fly the drone if it is beyond the operational limits of that particular drone. So so basically that's it. Those are just the basic informations you need to know about drones. And we have actually in our website, it's at caap.gov.ph, we enlisted there the requirements to secure all the permits, licenses, and operator certificate, as well as we have a basic video there highlighting the basic drone operations and its requirements. So that's it. Thank you very much, and I will be glad to receive questions later on, perhaps.
Okay. Thank you so much, Attorney Frank. I was on mute pala. So we would like to thank you for that very informative presentation. I hope everyone learned a lot from your presentation. Please stay with us for the Q&A portion. And to the participants, please keep your questions coming so that we will be clarified with a lot of our questions on CAAP rules and regulations. Now we turn over to Engineer Jewel Templonuevo. Jewel, you can also share your screen.
Good day to everyone who is tuned into this seminar. Today's topic is on drone-related policies, and for this second part, I will be giving you a brief discussion on the DENR Land Management Bureau issued policies regarding the use of drones in land surveying. These policies are issued in line with provision in the DENR Administrative Order 2007-29, or the revised regulations on land surveys, specifically stated in Section 14, that is on the utilization of modern technology and techniques in surveying. For the succeeding slides, the salient provisions of the two LMB issued policies will be discussed. First is the LMB Memorandum Circular Number 2017-003, or the adoption of the alternative use of unmanned aerial system in the conduct of land survey. The terms used in the policy shall be defined as follows. First, ortho-image, also known as orthophoto, is a map-accurate aerial photograph wherein the scale, distortion, and the effect of the tilt are corrected or rectified. Sensors, these may either be infrared or visual camera. Unmanned aerial vehicle or UAV, otherwise known as remotely piloted aircraft systems or the RPAS, is an aircraft with no pilot on board and which either be remotely controlled at a ground control station or fly autonomously based on pre-programmed flight plans. Next is the Unmanned Aerial System or the UAS, which consists of the UAV, payload, communication link, and dedicated software for mission planning, command and control, and recovery. For the UAS Calibration and Registration, the Land Management Bureau, through the Geodetic Service Division, shall calibrate and register UAS that will be used for land surveying, pursuant to Section 22 of DAO 2007-29. Compliance with regulations of the CAAP on the operation of UAV, the UAV flights shall conform to the prevailing regulations of CAAP in terms of the rights, restrictions, and responsibilities while in operation, or as discussed by Attorney Marty a while ago. Acceptance and processing of survey returns. The DNR regional offices shall receive, examine, and verify records of surveys in accordance with existing land administration and management system, inspection, verification, and approval of surveys, or LAMS IVAS procedures under DAO 2016-01, which is consistent with DAO 2007-29 and DAO 2010-18. Under preparation of survey returns, the following shall be submitted in addition to the required survey returns as listed in the current Manual on Land Survey Procedures. First, yung survey plan, which shall be plotted using the prescribed LMB form pursuant to Section 180 of the Manual on Land Surveys. The scale of the plotting shall also be in accordance with the annex under the said manual. The lot data computation shows the coordinates of the corners of the parcel, the corresponding technical description, and the area. The LDC as a result of land survey using UAS shall be similar to the current prescribed LDC form. A traverse computation or reference computation is no longer required unless the entire survey was conducted in combination with conventional survey instruments. Other documentary requirements are the following. Hard copy of the ortho image covering the entire project shall be printed on paper, the size of which shall not exceed 54 by 54 centimeters. Digital copies of the ortho image recognizable by current or future GIS platform provided in a compact disk. Raw images and flight log of the UAS, RINEX data of the reference points and ground control points, other miscellaneous computations and data. These include but not limited to traverse and side shots in situations that the UAS survey is combined with conventional surveying land-based instrument such as total station and or GNSS. Also, the field notes cover, which should contain the following additional information. Date and time of the survey, UAS sensor model, UAS platform model or brand, focal length of the camera, camera resolution, front lap and side lap percentages, flying height of the UAV, total number of images captured, area covered in hectares, software used in processing, coordinate system used, and name of pilot or operator. For the IVAS, the existing processes and practices under LAMS IVAS shall be used in the verification and approval of UAS output survey returns. Samples of the ortho image plotted to a scale similar to the lot plan and overlay of the lot plan onto the ortho image are hereto attached as Annex A. So the Annex A is like this. On the left, as shown, is the ortho image having the same scale as the lot plan, which can be seen in blue color, if everyone can discern it. On the right is the lot plan with a digitized lot and other survey information, such as the technical description overlaid on the ortho image. The computerized projection will use the digital copy of the lot data and ortho image. This will require the LAMS to use advanced GIS platform and an updated projection map in digital format. Processes that may be used include the following. First, overlay of the digital lot onto the ortho image to check for consistency. Checking of consistency between corners on the lot plan with its raster counterpart, and overlay of lot and ortho image onto the projection map to check for consistency and problems such as overlap and gap between parcels. For the verification of computations, the outputs of UAS-based ortho images are obtained from computer processing, thereby producing coordinates that are ground accurate as compared to conventional surveying that provides coordinates from side shots using land-based conventional surveying instruments. From the coordinates of the reference point and the corners of the property, the technical description and the land area are also computed. In the event that the drone data derived from the drone survey will not conform with the old approved surveys, the surveyors should prepare the survey returns in conformity with the old approved surveys and in accordance with DAO 2007-29. However, the data resulting from the drone survey should also be submitted for future reference. Next is the LMB Technical Bulletin Number 2, Series of 2017, or the Guidelines on the Use of Unmanned Aerial Systems in Support of Land Survey. This is a manual of the policy we have previously discussed, and this contains the standards, specifications, processes, and procedures in operating a drone. For the overview of the contents of this technical bulletin, it discusses related literatures on UAS applications in other countries, discussion on the principles and techniques used in UAS photogrammetry, UAS mapping workflow, which includes flight planning procedure, IVAS prerequisites for practicing GEs and DENR LMS, guidelines on the establishment of ground control points or GCPs, image processing and derived data outputs, and quality control of UAS mapping products, which includes accuracy assessment. So I apologize in advance if I would not be able to discuss all of the contents in detail, as these were already tackled by Engineer Louis Balicanta of UPTCAGP in last week's episode of the webinar series. So I will be skipping some parts and we'll jump to UAS validation. UAS validation can be achieved by making comparative measurements over a test bed with a network of ground validation points for which highly accurate 3D coordinates have been independently determined with the use of established terrestrial survey methods. What you can see on your screen is a test bed configuration by Volkmann, which prescribes a 250 by 250 meter square area with ground control points at the corners. So, according to Volkmann and Barnes, UAS mapping workflow begins with project design, site inspection or reconnaissance, flight planning using a flight planning software compatible with the drone, establishment of ground control points, actual drone flying for data acquisition, image processing using an open source or proprietary image processing software, and accuracy assessment. However, for drone applications on land surveys, we have additional steps which are parcel digitization from the output ortho image and preparation of survey returns for submission and approval. So I will be going with a quick run through of the steps, as these were already discussed in the previous webinar episode. So for project design, this includes strategies and preparations for the actual implementation. The following must be considered in making the design. First is the size of the area. Second, ground sample distance or the GSD. Third is the flight mission parameters such as the one is the GSD, the side lap and forward overlap area percentages. Next is the pixel size and image resolution, nature of terrain, flying height and ground speed, and the regulatory limitations. For reconnaissance, field reconnaissance is necessary to check the physical and environmental conditions of the project area. It is important to mark the presence of power lines and cellular towers that are not apparent on the available satellite imageries, as this may cause signal interferences or structural obstructions. This step will also help to improve the initial plan and avoid accidents during the actual flight. The design of the flight plan is an important component of UAV mapping. This is done using a flight planning software or application, and the commonly required user inputs are the following. Area to be mapped bounded by a polygon, flying height, camera geometry, which are the focal length and sensor dimensions, and percent overlap areas. Next is the GCP or Ground Control Point Survey. The image processing software generally requires a minimum number of GCPs, which is around 5, for the referencing processes to work. So with more GCPs, the more accurate the results will be. And the GCPs should be designed in a way that is easily identifiable on the photos and can be a naturally occurring feature that can be used as GCP, such as road corners and intersections. Since these points are used for referencing, the GCPs should not be clustered, but this should be evenly distributed throughout the project area. It is also advised to have 2 sets of GCPs. One set will be used for georeferencing the orthophoto during the image processing step, while the other set will be used as validation points for accuracy assessment. For the aerial image acquisition step, this can be divided as pre-flight, actual flight, and post-flight activities. For pre-flight, some UAVs have their own pre-flight procedure and checklists, but generally, these 2 important steps must be done. One is to check the link between the remote control and base station, and 2, ensure that the flight plan is uploaded to the memory of the UAV. During the actual flight, after launching the UAV, the pilot and co-pilot should do the following: observe the UAV at all times and follow its progress on the remote control and base station computer. Always be ready to override the automatic mode if necessary. Monitor the battery levels of both UAV and controller. Monitor the air traffic in the project area. Identify the nearest and safest emergency landing sites if the need arises. For the post-flight, when the UAV has landed, it is a good habit to inspect the UAV immediately to check for the following: any signs of overheating of the motors or electronic components, and quality of the aerial images captured. Before leaving the project area, check on available online satellite imagery whether the design flight plan and coverage was achieved. Next is the image processing step, which takes up most of the time in the whole UAS mapping workflow. This can be broken down into sub-steps as generation of sparse point cloud, introduction of GCPs for georeferencing, building the dense point cloud, generating the digital surface model, and finally generating the orthoimagery outputs. Next is for the accuracy assessment. We have three aspects to check for quality control and quality assurance. First is the data integrity. And to check for data integrity, the following must be ensured. Output files should be in correct format and not corrupted. Complete coverage of the project area. Accurate georeferencing the specified coordinate system. And size of image pixels matches the data product requirement. For spatial integrity, this assesses the output using statistical methods and is indicated by the root mean square error or RMSE. So as shown in this slide are the equations used to compute for the RMSE. This is also discussed by Sir Louis previously. Lastly, the completeness and aesthetics of the output must meet the customer's expectations in terms of the following general ortho-image quality characteristics, which can be checked visually. So tonal quality, there should be no scratches or image blemishes, no cloud shadows, no warp or wavy features, no mosaic lines to buildings. Shadow should not be so dark that this obscure image content or other features near it, and no edge match and feature misalignment. So for the additional steps, parcel digitization, this step requires a GIS software with basic functionalities such as vector and raster data visualization, data manipulation, analysis, storage, and retrieval, as well as a technical personnel with GIS knowledge and skills to operate. As shown on your screen is a sample of a digitized parcel from an orthophoto. The lot corners were marked on the ground with circular markers with a certain pattern and diameter, which can be easily identified on the ortho image. So this is the plot of our pilot area in Agusan, where we had conducted a simple subdivision survey. So for the survey return preparation, the digitized lots or lot are then plotted on a standard survey plan using an appropriate scale. So this plan, together with the survey returns prescribed in the Manual on Land Surveys and the LMB Memorandum Circular 2017-003, which was discussed a while ago, should be prepared accordingly and submitted to the DENR LMS for approval. So that's the end of the UAS mapping workflow and overview of the Technical Bulletin number 2, series of 2017. So what's next for us? In order for us to implement the use of UAS, the following activity should be done. So we need to select a site, conduct a research on the design, and establish a test bed for the testing and registration of UAS in LMB. Provide guidelines on the IVAS procedures for those supported surveys for the guidance of our DNR regional offices. Conduct capacity building for the technical personnel in the DNR regional offices on the use of GIS software. Enhancement of LAMS Philippines to accept, store, and retrieve UAS output as additional survey return requirement, and create IEC materials to inform the stakeholders on the application of this technology in land survey. So for further details and updates on our activities, please visit our website at www.lmb.gov.ph. For inquiries, comments, and or suggestions, you may send them to our official email address at dnrlmb@yahoo.com or through a private message to our official Facebook page at www.facebook.com/landmbofficial. On behalf of our Director, Attorney Emeline Talabis, Assistant Director, Engineer Romeo Versosa, Chief of Geodetic Service Division, Engineer Benvenido Cruz, and the LMB, I would like to extend our deepest appreciation for inviting us to be a resource speaker for today's webinar. I also would like to thank the Asia Foundation, Foundation for Economic Freedom, and the University of the Philippines Department of Geodetic Engineering. I hope that everyone has learned something today. Thank you and have a blessed day ahead. God bless us all.
Thank you, Engineer Jewel Templonuevo, for that presentation. I'm sure our participants have a lot of questions. So let me just bring you back, guys, to the gallery view. Engineer Jewel, you can stop screen sharing, if you can, please. I'll stop it, sorry. Okay. May I request our panelists to please, some of our panelists to please turn on their webcam for the Q&A question. Okay. I'll just read through the Q&A, the questions here under the open. Okay, the first question. May I also request Engineer Voltaire Tila and Ms. Engineer Rhea to please also turn on their webcam. Okay, and Engineer June also. Okay, the first question is, what extent can the drone be used in property surveying, subdivision, consolidation, relocation, etc.? I think this has been answered, but it would be great if some of the panelists, of our geodetic engineer panelists, can answer this. Hello? What extent can the drone be used in property surveying? I think the question is more of what are the applications, or what are the applications of drones in property surveying? You can give a quick answer.
Okay. Sige, pwede siya for subdivision and relocation. Pero the use of drones for more data acquisition. So so parang ano yan, if you want to get the coordinates of the corner lots, doon papasok ang drone survey. Pero siyempre, for setting out of the corners, yung paglalagay mismo ng muhon, traditional survey pa rin yung gagamitin mo.
Okay. Thank you. Anything more to add, or I'll proceed to the second question? Okay, I'll proceed to the second question. Which is more accurate and more trusted to use? Is drone surveying or the typical way of land surveying? That's a very good question, and there are varied answers, but let's hear from our GEs. Maybe Engineer Rhea can answer that question.
Si Waltz na or si June?
Or June or Sir Volts, please.
Ako po muna.
Sige, June.
Sige, go June, go.
So in terms of accuracy, it will basically depend on two things. Una, kung yung instrument ba na ginagamit natin or yung gagamitin natin ay kaya bang ma-achieve yung kailangan nating accuracy. So pangalawa ay kung paano po natin gagamitin yung equipment na yun. For example, kasi kung meron tayong equipment na, let's say, total station, na kayang based on the specifications, parang accurate siya to the 1 millimeter. Pero mali naman yung paggamit natin, yung pag-level natin ng tripod mali. Erroneous pa rin po yung makukuha nating data. Ganun din po kapag ka UAV, kung mali po yung paggamit natin ng UAV, ay hindi rin magiging maganda yung result natin. So in terms of kung alin yung more trusted to use, depende siguro din sa tao yan. Kasi yung iba, parang, kunyari for topographic surveys, gusto pa rin, although possible nang ma-achieve yung topographic surveys, yung accuracies natin using the drones, may iba na gusto pa rin yung typical na or yung conventional land surveying natin. Pero dagdag ko lang din siguro na kapag kunyari for property surveying ay at least makikita natin visually kaagad. Like for example, kung meron tayong set boundaries, makikita natin visually na ito yung boundary ko. Mas madali siya makita compared sa lines lang na makukuha natin from conventional surveying.
Okay, thank you, June. How about you, Sir Volts? You want to add?
Yeah, yun na rin yun.
Okay.
And ako rin.
Sige, Ms. Rhea, please.
In addition, it also depends on the purpose. So like for example, 'di ba, mas ma-appreciate nila if meron visuals to show them kung ano yung relative position ng kanilang property dun sa parang mas malaking view nung property or yung subdivision, yung mismong barangay. So that also helps.
Okay.
Meron pa pala kayo doon sa ano. Yung
Sige.
sa ano, yung drone surveying, syempre yung accuracy rin, it depends saan din, sa ground control points na gagamitin mo. So kung hindi accurate yung ginawa sinet ng ground control points, tatapon din yung survey ng drone survey.
Okay. So, Engineer Jewel, please unmute yourself and yeah.
In addition sa sagot nila, I think consideration din yung terrain. If the area is rolling terrain, I think mas accurate yung conventional compared sa UAV.
Okay.
Because Christian Clemeno here added that it depends also on the speed and accuracy of the project. So kung anong gagamitin mo instrument, if mas mabilis, sa tingin mo mas mabilis na magagawa if you use a drone, then it's also the option of the geodetic engineer.
Okay. Okay, next question. When conducting a land survey, can I use the lot corner monuments as my reference point when distributing the GCPs all over the mapping area when there's no other reference point available? Can I use the lot corner monuments as my reference point when distributing the GCPs all over the mapping area when there's no reference point available? Okay. Any answer? Jewel, Ms. Rhea, or Sir Volz, or June?
Yeah. Sige ko pwede naman. Tapos parang lalo siya para mag-assume ka ng coordinates. Ano? So as long as yung pag-distribute mo, tama rin, or kung kagamit ko siguro ng traditional survey ng pag-distribute ng GCPs, i-close mo. Dapat i-loop back mo siya.
Okay. Anything else to add? Yes, Miss Templonuevo.
I think it has to be referenced to the nearest talaga. I think if traverse or control point survey is necessary, no? Kailangan po kasi nakakonect siya sa NAMRIA or LMS control point.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'll read the next questions addressed to Attorney Marty from CAAP. Okay, medyo marami-rami po. The first question is, how much would it cost to register our own RPAS or acquire the necessary certifications? Thanks. Medyo marami-rami, sir. Take it away.
Yeah, actually, since we require 3 certificates, the Operator Certificate, Certificate of Registration of the Aircraft, and the Controller Certificate, nagva-vary yun sa certificate na kukuhanin. Right now, I just don't have with me the exact figures, but it's also posted in our website, the cost. And similarly, merong corresponding process. It's already posted in our website. Also, the steps in securing those types of certificates or permits.
Angela can share actually her experience because she registered our drone.
Yes.
Okay, for drone registration, it's 1,500 pesos and it's valid for 1 year. You can call the Airworthiness Department of CAAP for more information and the requirements needed. For the controller certificate, Sir Volz, if I'm correct, because Engineer Walter Tila here is our resident GE and also a certified drone controller. I think it's 3,000 pesos, no, sir? Sir Volz, for
total,
controller certificate.
Baka less pa.
Baka less pa.
Around 1.5 siguro. Hindi naman siya ganun ka...
Okay, just we'll get back to you in the figures, but it's around that.
We also want everyone to visit our Technology for Property Rights project because we developed an IEC material on the how-tos,
Yes.
including the procedures and how much. So you will learn a lot by reading that. It's on fef.exposure.co.
Also, for everyone's info, we'll reshare that post later on so everyone can see the procedures. Okay, thank you, Attorney Marty, for that. Okay, next question for GEs. Follow up on this question. Drones give WGS84 coordinates, but we do not use it on LPCS. I don't know what that means. What's LPCS? How would you reconcile data which until now we cannot use NAMREA reference monuments in isolated surveys?
What?
Yeah, so yeah, pwede mo na pag mag-process mo siya, pwede mo siyang i-ano sa PRS-92 coordinates na in-grid pag pinaras mo yung image. So kung naka-local siya, kailangan, para magka-common point ka lang din, maghahanap ka ng isang ng corner monument. Then convert mo lang yung local coordinates nun. Ganun lang siya. I-ano mo lang, ta-translate mo lang balik yung coordinates na nakuha mo sa drone survey into local coordinates.
Okay.
Using yung common point.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Tila. I'll just dismiss this. And there's another question sa CAAP. Open na po ba mag-register and kumuha ng CAAP license? Attorney Marty.
Yes. To respond to that, right now we are not accepting as we have restrictions for visitors to come into the office right now. But we are actually in the process of devising an online registration, and it might probably be released anytime soon. And the application for certificates for RPAS Air Operator, Controller Certificate and Operator Certificate are being included in that process, online process. So right now we are not accepting, but you just better monitor in our website as we will be eventually receiving applications through online.
Okay, thank you, sir. We have another question here. Unahin ko muna to kasi CAAP din. So, can a drone operator who is not a geodetic engineer conduct or execute surveys using drone and have the survey submitted to the client or government regulatory agencies like DENR, assessor, city engineer office?
Yeah. To respond to that, actually, we are actually not, how do you call it? What we are basically concerned of is only the operations of the drone, but as to the use of that specific purpose, the materials, whether you can submit that to the DENR or for other offices to consider the output of your operation, then it is the concern of that particular office. The validity and the acceptability of that output is dependent on that office. But as to the use of the drone, even if you are not a geodetic engineer, you can actually just fly any drone. Anybody can fly a drone for as long as you have the necessary permits, you have the necessary licenses. Yeah.
So to answer that, like for example, in the work of a geodetic engineer, we use like for example total station, no. So we have mga survey instrument, mga instrument man, what we call the instrument man. So in terms of the drones, we also have yung mga licensed drone controllers na they can just fly the drone, but with regards to the survey work, it's really the geodetic engineer. Kasi may processing involved dyan. Yung flying is just, you know, magpa-fly ka lang, and the drone will collect data or will gather data, but the processing of that data will still be the geodetic engineer, since he has to connect to reference systems, and, you know, so GE pa rin ang on top and should be the one to still sign the survey.
Okay, thank you. I think we can have entertain one more question. Engineer Jewel, this question is for you. In case that the data images collected do not pass data quality assurance, halimbawa blurred images, that to me means that another round of data collection is required. Is there a platform by which data collected is reviewed or checked by a third party or probably the government agency itself? Or will the manpower requirement have to be considered for every project?
As I understand yung first question, third parties is a software. I'm not familiar if there is a third party software, but some image processing software like X4D, they have this initial processing which takes around 10 to 20 minutes, which could process yung data collected. So on the spot, pwede nilang i-check yun. And will the manpower requirement have to be considered for every project? Yes, I think it has to have a pilot, a co-pilot, and some other technical personnel, which should be ready to be on the operation of in the conduct of UAS for land survey.
Okay, thank you. Any other answers from our fellow GEs here in the panel? Okay. Okay, I think that's it. Attorney Marty, there's another question here for you, but it's more of it's outside our scope. If you
Excuse me.
Yeah,
Hello?
sorry.
Ay, sorry. Dagdag ko lang din with regards to the blurred images, ano. So, kasi with Pix4D, kunyari, example lang naman, for Pix4D Mapper, although meron siyang rapid processing na pwede mong gamitin on the field, ang mapoproduce kasi talaga sa rapid processing ay very low resolution na images. Pero pwede mo magamit yung rapid processing for the sake na makita mo kung enough na ba yung data mo to cover or to process the ortho image. Kasi kapag nakita mo na hindi magiging blanco yung data mo doon through rapid processing, most probably pagka nag-actual high resolution processing ka ay kompleto yung data mo. Now with regards to the blurred images, right after the flight or pwede mag-test flights ka din muna, no? Pwede naman din nating silipin yung ating raw images kasi yung ating output ortho image ay magiging based lang naman sa magiging quality ng ating raw images. Kasi kung blurred yung raw images natin, hindi yan kayang gawing sharp ng ating processing software. Yun po.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, June. Attorney Marty, there's another question here. It's not related to drone, but maybe we can give a quick answer to this person. It's about he was issued a temporary airman license last 2016 and it's valid for a year. He wasn't able to renew. He's asking if he can still renew now.
Well, actually, since the license has already expired and it was issued 2016 pa, I think you really have to start. You have to get a new license for that, and you also have to take the because there is a corresponding examination for that. So you have to go through the process of securing a new license. So it's not possible to renew such temporary license. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Marty. Okay, last na to, guys. Last question, because this question is actually a good question. Okay. On the commercial side, is it possible to separate the data/image acquisition and the surveying part? Can the data acquisition be done by a separate entity and the processing done by a surveyor? Any thoughts? Okay, from our fellow GEs? Okay.
Sige, ako na mag-answer. Tingin ko pwede naman eh. So, pagka sa GE, dapat siya yung magpa-process at mag-interpret ng data.
Yeah. Okay.
Because flying the drone is not, parang hindi siya yung exclusive lang for just any profession.
Profession.
Jewel,
sige, sorry.
Okay. Jewel, go.
Jewel.
I think during the actual data acquisition, at least may supervision ng GE.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so that...
Pero Pwedeng,
Angela, please read the answered questions because I don't think that those are being read by our participants.
Okay. So here are other questions pa. The first one is, will be considered as a non-commercial operation if it is used by LGU for monitoring purposes or aerial inspection? If the drone is used for will it be considered as a non-commercial operation if the LGU uses it for monitoring or aerial inspection?
Yes.
Attorney
Yeah,
Marty.
I already answered that in the Q&A
Okay.
box. That as a general rule, the LGU operations is considered as non-commercial operation. But remember, when the operation is outside the limitations of the authority, then they have to secure a special permit for that operation.
And
Okay.
if others did it for them, yung contractor would have to, pay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Next question. Engineer Jewel, this is for you. May IRR na po for Section 20 ng siguro DAO 07-29. Thanks. I think you've answered this or haven't answered this. Please, Engineer Jewel, if you have an answer for this one.
Section 22 daw pala. It's on the UAV calibration for LMB.
Section 22 po is on instrument calibration and
Anyway,
registration po.
she is referring to the UAV calibration kasi 2007-29 kasi ang pinupunto niya, but I think she is referring to
Yes.
the LMC UAV calibration.
Wala.
Daw.
Wala pa po. In the making po.
It's still being developed. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Engineer Jewel.
Please read the second one. May na-skip na.
Wait. Sorry, which question is
Oh.
that? Okay. We
You
fly only within our facility, to Attorney Marty. We fly only within our facilities and business areas. Our outputs not getting any remuneration of any kind since we only use it internally. We are considered non-commercial, correct?
Yeah. In response to that, you are operating as a business operation, although the output of that operation, the drone operations that you're using is not actually for other consumption, but considering that it is in furtherance of your business, that's why it is important yung highlight ko kanina doon sa definition ng commercial air operation kasi nakalagay doon yung in furtherance of a business. For as long as it is in furtherance of the business, then it's considered as commercial operation.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any more? Let me see. Okay, I'm just gonna read the questions related to drones because some of the questions are related to the other aspects of CAAP. Okay, this is a good question which was answered by Engineer June. Can a drone be used without the hotel stations? Theodolite or transit to subdivide lots, approve the subdivision by DENR, LRA, and have the sublots titled? Engineer June?
Okay, so from an operational standpoint, ang sagot ay no. Kasi if we do not utilize other positioning instruments accurately, we will have issues with the correct scale and orientation of the processed ortho image from the UAV survey. So this will result in erroneous distances and bearings kapag i-extract na natin yung information from the processed image.
Okay, thank you. And last question that I will read to Attorney Marty again, although he has answered this already. Okay. I would like to start as a hobbyist as a beginner, but will eventually upgrade to do commercial services. Do I need to secure an operator's license or just a controller and drone registration, even if they're just classified as toys?
So, again, just bear in mind the distinction between a commercial and a non-commercial operation. For as long as you are operating for commercial purposes, then you really have to secure all the 3 permits that we require: Operator Certificate, Controller Certificate, and the Aircraft Registration. And if you are just a hobbyist, then no need to secure for now. No need to secure for permits and licenses, except the exceptions, except you have to register your aircraft. It's more than 150, if it's more than 7 kilograms, or you have to secure additional permits if you are flying in areas prohibited by the authority.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's I'm going to wrap up the Q&A portion. Thank you everyone for participating in the Q&A. Now, I would like to request everyone to also please answer this short poll. Just 2 to 3 minutes would be good. We'll give you 2 to 3 minutes. I'll launch it. And of course, if you've answered this one, we'll give you an e-certificate, which will be emailed either today or tomorrow. So please take your time in answering. While answering, would like to announce that we'll be having our last webinar on July 9, same time next week at 10 a.m. Of course, if you have more questions na hindi nasagot, or you have more questions later on the later part of the day, and you really want to ask this question, just drop a message in our TPR Facebook page. Also, this webinar is recorded and it's live on Facebook, but we'll also upload this in our FB page and our YouTube channel, the Foundation for Economic Freedom. Lastly, yes, Ms. Rhea.
Not a lot are answering the poll. On the below or sa baba ng screen nyo, meron pong poll. So pakipindot po yan. And then there are questions, please do answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And lastly, I would like to thank our guest speakers for today. Attorney Marty from the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Even if a bit short notice yung ano namin, he still accommodated our request. Thank you din kay Engineer Jewel Templonuevo of DNR LMB for also sharing her time with us. You sure learn a lot about these drone policies, especially when you want to use drones for surveying. We also want to thank our partner, the UP Training Center for Geodesy and Applied Photogrammetry, and its representative, Engineer June Domingo, and his nice camera. I wish to get that kind of quality of camera soon. And also, we'd like to thank the Asia Foundation and the Atlas Network for supporting us in this endeavor. And also, lastly, we would like to thank everyone, the participants, for joining this webinar. Lalo na po yung mga participants na kasama natin since the very beginning. Thank you very much. Okay, let me see. Okay, 70 out of 88 people have answered. Now it's 71. Okay.
We have 97.
We are 97 here. So please. Because we will give the certificates based on the names of people who answered the survey.
Angela, photo op yung,
yes.
Yung panelist.
Photo op yung panelist. Okay. Please turn on your Sir Rene and Cesar. If you're still there, please turn on your webcam while we wait for the polls to be finished.
I'm not sure si Miss Mona kung hindi natanggal hindi na
Si Miss Mona, we can just...
Anyway, okay lang.
Yeah, okay lang.
Yeah.
Ang galing hindi ko ma-demote.
Ayaw ni Sir Rene mag-open.
Ayaw ni Sir Rene.
Okay.
It's okay. Okay, let me see kung ilan na yung sumagot. Oh, Mona left. Thank you, Mona.
Wait lang.
83 of 85. So, I think...
Wait lang at mag-ano pa lang ako.
Yeah.
Ready? 1, 2... Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. George. From George, thank you po sa inyong lahat.
Okay. Okay, that ends our webinar for today. Please watch out for more updates for the upcoming webinar, and we thank everyone for joining today's event. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.